Hello, welcome to the conversation here on New Central Television. This is a program where we bring you up to speed with all the political happenings on the African continent. I am Gbenga Aborowa.
And I am Rita Omodia. Now, today on the conversation, we will be taking a focus at Ghana and Tunisia. Now, in Ghana, former President John Mahama has officially expressed his interest to lead the National Democratic Congress, NDC, ahead of the 2024 general election.
While in Tunisia, again, there is a renewed call for the dismissal of President Kais Saied. And this time, it is the former President Monsef Maruzuki that is calling for his removal.
It seems we're in the times of the former president. I mean, in one place we're saying one calling for the dismissal of a president. I think it's also the same thing, but one is not contesting for the election. I think so. While in Ghana, we see a former president saying, you know, Nana Akufo-Addo, you have tried. It's time for another president. I think I would be in the best position for all of this.
And it's interesting because he's been president before and he lost convincingly to the incumbent president. But because of the luxury of hindsight, people can do a comparative analysis and look at you know those times and now. So we'll get into the details.
Definitely.
And also in Nigeria, we're looking forward to the elections coming up. It's February, so in a few weeks.
25 days actually.
Yeah, 25 days.
Countdown begins.
We'll be going to the polls.
Definitely.
Interesting times ahead.
Of course, and our New Central TV will definitely be bringing you updates. We've seen presidential campaigns from both the APC candidate, the PDP, and the Labour candidate, all coming forward to say what they have for Nigeria. Meanwhile, Nigeria is still experiencing, unfortunately, through scarcity, Naira scarcity due to the resigned Naira notes. But of course, we'll see how that all pans out. But right now in the conversation, first we start in Ghana, where former President John Mahama has officially expressed his interest to lead the National Democratic Congress, NDC, ahead of the 2024 general election. That, however, he said, would be based on the party allowing him to contest for the flag bearer position going into the elections. With the NDC expected to elect its flag bearer for the 2024 elections in November this year, in accordance with the roadmap for its internal elections, one name that has popped up is Dr. Kwabena Dufour, the former Minister of Finance, who is reportedly prepared to contest the position with former President Mahama.
Now, a recent report by the Economics Intelligence Unit had also predicted a win for the NDC going into the 2024 general elections. However, it noted that the NDC could only achieve the feat by electing a fresh candidate besides former President John Dramani Mahama. The next presidential and parliamentary elections are due in 2024 under constitutional mandated term limit, which means incumbent President Nana Akufo-Addo cannot run for the third time. Now, join us to discuss all of this and more is Ibrahim Alhassan, is a journalist, and we also have Mawuli Dake, a Pan-Africanist and CEO of African Group Consult. They both join from the Guinean capital, Accra. One welcome to you, gentlemen. Glad to have you on the show.
Thank you. Thank you.
Now, I'd like to
Happy to join you.
Now, I'd like to start with you, Ibrahim. 2024 is still more than a year away. And it seems that the politicking and the race for who takes over Jubilee House from incumbent President Nana Akufo-Addo has started. What's the political atmosphere like in Ghana as we speak?
Has actually started just gathering momentum relative to the political season. And that is because, of course, both parties, NDC, NPP, and when I mentioned the New Patriotic Party, it is the party in government now in Ghana. It is expected to go to the primaries to elect not just a flag bearer to replace Nana Akufo-Addo, whom, as you mentioned, is ending his constitutionally mandated 2 terms at the end of the 2024 elections. They are also expected to elect parliamentary candidates. And mind you, given the figures in parliament strewn out after the 2020 elections, which in essence left Ghana with a hung parliament because the governing party could only garner 137 seats, 137 seats. And that is the same number of seats that was gathered by the opposition NDC. Of course, there was one independent member of parliament who decided to caucus with the governing NPP because he went independent from their fold. That is giving the governing party a slim majority in parliament. So two key things. First of all, internal elections, primaries to elect parliamentary candidates, and then to elect presidential candidates as well. Let's specifically focus on the conversation we're having today, which has everything to do with the opposition National Democratic Congress. As you mentioned, John Dramani Mahama, I must say he was actually late to the party because it was only this week, and for that matter, from last week to this week, that we have something concrete from his end that he will be seeking a comeback. You mentioned the former governor of the central bank and former finance minister under the previous NDC administration, Dr. Kwabena Dufo. Months ago, he met the media and announced to the entire nation that he intends contesting for the flag bearership slot of the opposition NDC when the process starts. There has been an announcement as to when this process will definitely kick off, and that will be May of this year. What the party has decided to do is to combine the two primaries. I talk about the primaries for election of parliamentary candidates. Same for the election of a flag bearer. They will take place concurrently across the length and breadth of the country. The party members, delegates to call them, will not converge at one point to undertake this exercise. They'll be voting from their various constituencies, after which the coalition will be done and a flag bearer elected and declared. For the parliamentary candidates, once the coalition is done at the constituency level and the results are put together, the winners are equally declared, and they will then hold the flag for the party going into the 2024 elections as parliamentary candidates, and the national one will have a flag bearer. So yes, the atmosphere is heating up, but not too hot as of yet.
Okay.
All right, heating up but not so hot. Now, Mawuli, I mean, let's still stay with this former president before we go to President Akufo-Addo. Now, former President John Mahama has declared his interest for the 2024 elections. I mean, is a former Ghanaian president, how popular is he still in Ghana?
Well, great to join you from Accra this afternoon. And as we all know, as the former president, Nana Akufo-Addo made a convincing case to Ghanaians that we deserve better than the leadership and the performance that we were receiving from John Mahama, and Ghanaians agreed with him. Unfortunately, it turned out to be our biggest political mistake because that change has resulted in an unprecedented level of incompetence and political damage, economic damage to Ghana. So unfortunately, many of us would think that we'll be looking forward, but based on Annette's underwhelming performance, we kind of are asking
Mawuli, are you still with us? Mawuli, okay, I think we'll get back to you shortly. I'm going to switch that question back to Ibrahim now. We're looking at chances for John Mahama, who is a former president. And I also know that Dr. Kwabena Dufo, the former Minister of Finance, is also reportedly supposed to contest this particular position of the NDC alongside is one of the contestants for the NDC flag bearership for the 2024 elections. I mean, how do you see this panning out for John Mahama? Does he still have that popularity being a former president of Ghana?
Well, we have just now two living former presidents. John Mahama is one of them, and former President John Kufuor, of course. Rawlings and Atamels, who actually died on the seat, are no more, so to speak. So if we talk about popularity of John Mahama, that's in no doubt, and evidence will not be far away from you. You just have to look at the 2020 elections. He actually made a gain of 2.7% from the 2016 election that saw him exit office. President Akufo-Addo, on the other hand, actually made a loss of 2.4% in the votes that he garnered in 2016 that saw him topple the incumbent president, John Dramani Mahama. Again, when you look at Ghana, usually we have the governing party and then we have the opposition party. Since 1992, what we've had are two parties. At every point in time, one is in government, one is in opposition. Of course, the MPP being in opposition, the most popular person in opposition, MPP government being in government, MPP being in government, the most popular person in opposition that everybody looks up to is John Dramani Mahama, right? So whenever he speaks, he doesn't just speak as the opposition leader, or he doesn't just speak as a former presidential candidate for the NDC because of what happened in 2020. He also speaks as a former president. So the popularity is in no doubt at all. But regardless, if you look at the figures again, yes, the party made gains in parliament in 2020, unprecedented level of gains. The incumbent party lost unprecedented number of seats as well. That point must be made. But it's difficult for you to stick your neck out and say that because of these things I've mentioned, 2024 will be a walk in the park for a John Dramani Mahama NDC ticket. Nonetheless, if you ask a specific question about his popularity, I'm not sure any political watcher in Ghana will say that John Mahama lacks popularity when it comes to the political climate and atmosphere, and for that matter, space here in Ghana. He's quite popular, same as the president now, who had attempted 3 times, and in the process, endeared himself very well with the electorate, to the point that the electorate felt this man has been knocking on our doors for the past, say, 12 years. How about we give him a chance? And they did. So yes, if you ask specific question about how popular John Mahama is, I can say he's popular. You equally talked about his opponent, a likely opponent, Dr. Kwabena Dufo, who is from the same party with him, served in government with him. When John Dramani Mahama was the vice president to the late President Mills, of course, Kwabena Dufo was the finance minister then. When he took over the mantle of leadership after the death of John Evans Atta Mills, he then, of course, changed his finance minister and gave it to Seth Terkper, of course. But then that's not to say that they were not working together. I'm talking about the former finance minister and then John Dramani Mahama. So it's come as a surprise to many people that, in spite of everything, Dr. Dufo has decided to contest John Dramani Mahama. But mind you, like I said, Dufo was first to announce publicly to Ghanaians that he has an interest in raising or holding the flag for the NDC when the process starts. Like I said, just last week, and per what has been reported, the former president, which doesn't come to anybody as a surprise, has finally decided to throw his hat into the race once again, seeking to lead the party. So basically, like I said, if it's a popularity contest, the John Mahama has it in his corner.
Okay, interesting take from Ibrahim. Let me bring in Mawuli also from Accra. Ibrahim seems to think it will be a walk in the park. Now, current opinions agree with what you're saying, Mawuli, before we lost you the other time. Current opinion polls show that President Nana Akufo-Addo-led MPP is at an all-time low. A lot of Ghanaians are dissatisfied with the way the economy is being run. The economy is in a quagmire, and a Ghanaian parliamentarian famously said, you know, your finance minister is an economic Maguire, referring to the Manchester United defender. The cedi has lost its value. Now, will this factor into the next general elections, which are next year? Is there still time for MPP to turn things around for good before the 2024 elections, or Ghanaians would always remember this period of broken promises and the cedi losing its value?
Well, frankly, one would hope that we remember that Ghanaians remember this, regardless of how things are massaged before the election, because obviously, getting closer to elections, there are going to be all kinds of gimmicks and cover-ups to give the appearance of things improving, even though we all know that the reality will emerge right after the election. So I do hope that Ghanaians remember today. But there's not much difference between Ghana
Okay, we lost Mr.
and
Duck.
you are in a
Yes,
situation where, can you hear me?
yes, go ahead, please.
Yeah. So you are in a similar situation where conditions on the ground and the track records of your top contenders should give you the indication that, okay, Nigerians will be looking for an alternative. But for one or two reasons, we seem to be stuck with the two options that always dominate. So it's the same thing in Ghana. So despite the obvious political and economic challenges that we see, there's still going to be many other factors that factor into people's choices. Key among them is going to be ethnicity. People often use that to override the other things that directly affect them. So it's not going to be easy. We all hope that we'll look at our condition and choose accordingly. But we know that it's not going to be easy because there are many other factors. Of course, there's going to be incumbency where there's more resources available to the ruling government.
Yeah.
So they are obviously going to abuse that as well. But for me, the biggest challenge for me, as I tell people, is that if it is a free and fair election, I have no doubt that the ruling party will lose. But this is also a ruling party that has shown the tendency of capturing state institutions. We have seen instances of what has happened with our hitherto independent electoral commission, the political interference, the installation of partisan favorites in that institution, and what they are willing to do to ensure the victory of the party. So that is a bigger concern to me, than anything else, because
Okay.
I think that is what's going to make the difference.
All right, Mawuli, thank you so much. I'm quite tempted to ask the kind of close ties you have with Nigeria, but definitely we'll have that conversation later. But now, Ibrahim, over to you right now. I mean, we talk about the NPP and how the governance of Nana Akufo-Addo has cast quite a gleam light on the NPP. Now, going forward, NPP will still be going for this 2024 elections, and Nana Akufo-Addo cannot run for the third term as he will have reached his constitutional mandated term limits. Now, is there a successor? Do we have things like that? Or has his vice president indicated any interest in becoming the president? What do we have for the NPP at the moment?
Well, the list is endless, so to speak. Of course, we've had so far no less than 7 people declare interest in succeeding President Akufo-Addo as the NPP flag bearer come 2024. Some are in Parliament, members of Parliament. We have a member of Parliament for Alhassan Central, Kennedy Ohene Japan, who is a firebrand and an outspoken member of the governing NPP. Obviously, we equally have the now just resigned Minister for Trade and Industry, Alhassan Martin, who has been contesting for this same slot with the President Akufo-Addo since 1996, thereabouts, getting after the year 2000, basically, I must say, after the year 2000, contested in 2017 and 2007, specifically 2007, when former President Akufo was the president. He actually lost by the Friska. He had 47%. The now President Nana Akufo-Addo had a little above 49%, but could not cross the 50+1 mark. I guess what Alhassan Martin did, instead of going for more or less like a runoff, he gave up and then surrendered the victory to Nana Akufo-Addo. That ensured that even after he recontested the same man again, he lost because the man had the party rank and file on his side. Given the fact that he had knocked for the first time, the door was not open. Second time, the door was not open. For the third time, the party felt that was the time and that could be it. And indeed, that was it. So he now feels it is his turn, and nothing can derail that. Mind you, there's a certain Dr. Mawuli, who is the vice president of the nation, and for that matter, vice president to Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, who equally has the support of the system and the rank and file in government. And so it's going to be a three-horse race.
Now, as President Nana Akufo-Addo,
yes.
Has President Nana Akufo-Addo appointed any successor or favorites?
That's one thing that the president has been able to quite stay off, clear off. Unlike former President Kufuor under the NPP, who publicly showed affection to Alan Kojo Chiramaten. Many actually believe that that was why he lost in 2007, because he was the system's candidate, the system's favorite. And the president then did not hide this fact. It really got other people to wonder why the president had anointed his candidature, a reason why he lost. And I'm sure lessons have been learned from there. The president constantly, Nana Addo Akufo-Addo, has said publicly that he doesn't have a favorite and that the process will be allowed to go on smoothly. And at the end of the day, whoever is elected, he is very sure will win come 2024 to ensure that the two-term cyclical process that the country has witnessed since 1993 will then be broken. And they call it breaking the eight, because it's always been 8 years term for mandate for each of these political parties, NDC, MPP. So they have a mantra that says they are breaking the eight. So publicly, the president Nana Akufo-Addo has been successful in not indicating his love for his own vice president. But of course, like I said, as a journalist, you can tell that the system has a favorite, and the system favorite is a vice president.
Thank you, Ibrahim. Thank you, Ibrahim. Now, Mawuli, former President John Mahama, in a recent lecture at Chatham House in London, said the 2024 general elections will be the most important in Ghana's history. I know you're not in his head, and but what do you think? Why do you think he said this? And what will be the most pressing and important issues of priority for Ghanaians as they head towards the polls next year?
Well, I do agree with him to an extent because of our current trajectory and the direction in which we're going. We know that if we go down this path for a few more years, it will be disastrous politically and economically. So it is that important. I just don't share the view that there's going to be any miraculous rescue regardless of the outcome. Obviously, I share the opinion that if a party or a government misgoverns, abuses power, and shows the tendency to be as mediocre as this government has been, the voters should vote them out regardless. But I'm not under any illusion whatsoever that it therefore means that whoever is coming is going to provide any magical solutions to our problem, because I have not seen any such proposals that will transform our fundamental conditions. So yes, indeed, it is important for us, for our democracy. As I said, I'm even more concerned about the political situation than the economy. Everybody is talking about the currency and the Ghana cedi and the economic downturn, but I'm actually more concerned about the political development than I am of the economic situation, because we have, those of us working on governance and stuff, we have been concerned about what we have seen as the political capture of state institutions. So one of the key things will be how we begin to restore citizens' confidence in our democracy, how we begin to restore the integrity and independence of our independent political institutions of states, including the police, the military, electoral commission, and all the institutions that are supposed to help to help us hold government accountable and ensure accountability. So I am looking forward to 2024, and I hope that we give ourselves the chance to start to at least halt this unfortunate going down the hole and start a process of restoring some confidence in our governance systems and political institutions.
All right, thank you so much, Mawuli. Now, Ibrahim, while the people are looking for improvements in livelihood in Ghana, we still look at the parties now still preparing for their primaries. When do we expect the primaries for the major political parties to be held?
NDC has already been announced, and that will come up in May this year. The NPP, there is a National Executive Committee meeting scheduled to make a determination as to when their primaries will take place. Had scheduled a meeting for last week. It was postponed, but they are looking at somewhere around August this year. And once that is done, and I'm sure in line with what NDC has equally done, where both primaries take place concurrently, be it internal elections to elect parliamentary candidates and that of the flag bearer. We should know that by the end of the year, month August, we should have NDC's candidates for flag bearership, same with that of MPP, which would then mean that from early part of 2024, it's campaigning throughout. And that has always been the system down here. Immediately after a new president is sworn in, we are in the campaign mood for the next elections with very little time to pay attention to governance, especially good governance.
Now, sorry, Mawuli, just before we wrap up, you did mention concerns about the capture of state institutions by the ruling party. Are you confident in the Electoral Commission of Ghana's ability to conduct free and fair elections in 2024?
The simple answer would be no. But I think that as citizens, we have the time and an obligation to demand reforms before.
What are your reasons for saying no?
Well, obviously, anyone who paid close attention to the previous elections saw what happened. The election was challenged, and we saw the manner in which the Electoral Commission even refused to defend its own results. And we saw the manner in which the Electoral Commission and the courts colluded to avoid accountability. We had another election last year under the last regime in Accra here, and it was just a parliamentary election. A member of parliament died, and we saw unprecedented violence as we've never seen before in our election in Accra, where people were violently attacked by state institutions, where party vigilantes were armed. And this happened in Accra. We also have a situation where the president, for the first time, removed the previous electoral commissioner and installed one of his associates as the new chair of the Electoral Commission. So a lot of things have happened. They've had a very cantankerous relationship with the opposition, where they have even boycotted a lot of processes with the Electoral Commission. So obviously, if you look at the indicators, a lot of them have been violated. So it's of great concern to a lot of institutions working on democracy and governance in Ghana. But we have the chance to push for some reforms before 2024. But as it is now, if things stand the way they are, then opposition better give up, because I don't think they stand a chance.
Okay, I don't want it to be one-sided. I wanted Ibrahim's take on all of this. Do you still have this non-confidence for the Electoral Commission in Ghana? I mean, or what are the reforms? What is your take exactly on the preparation for the 2024 elections?
Well, everybody agrees that the removal of Charlotte Osei, the former boss of the Electoral Commission, was something that could have been avoided. It's a blot on our image as a nation and on our democratic credentials. That is a fact that nobody can run away from. Nonetheless, I think the system has been built in a way that if political parties are vigilant, especially now that we have a hung parliament. Mind you, the EC has in essence, attempted presenting a constitutional instrument to Parliament, where I report from. The Speaker, who now belongs to the opposition side, has sent a caution to the Electoral Commission that the CI that is seeking to make Ghana card, and that is a national ID card that has been rolled out for every Ghanaian to have, to be the only proof of nationality or primary document for you to be enrolled onto the electoral roll, would not be admitted in Parliament. And once this CI is not admitted in Parliament, mind you, the opposition has kicked against this move. It means that those reforms that many people believe could help the party in power to hold on to power come 2024 will be taken care of one way or the other by Parliament. So in some of these checks and balances, that makes some waters of our democracy believe that if the parties are vigilant, it doesn't matter what machinations and orchestrations are done, the will of the people will have to be announced by the EC, whether it's so desires it or not. So yes, I agree that there are issues, but I think that there are no issues that are way above our systems to deal with, especially on the part of the political parties. If you don't do your homework well, sometimes you just blame the EC over things that you could have done on your own to ensure that you've not been shortchanged at the polls.
All right, thank you so much, Ibrahim Alhassan, a journalist in Accra, Ghana, and of course, Mawuli, Dake, a Pan-Africanist and CEO Africa Group Consult. Of course, we will definitely be keeping our eyes on Ghana, as I know that you are as well keeping eyes on Nigeria as we move forward to 2023 elections. Thank you so much for joining us on the conversation.
Thank you. Thank you.